Welcome to Champions Mojo. Join us for conversations that inspire and empower you as an adult athlete, fitness enthusiast, or master swimmer. Our goal is to make each episode insightful and inspirational and to discover what it takes to build or keep a life of personal excellence. I'm your host, Kelly Pallas, and we're here to champion you. Hello, friends. I'm Kelly Pallas, the host of the Champions Mojo podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce an extraordinary guest whose journey is as inspiring as it is multifaceted. Besides being a master swimmer, Matt Mauser is a dynamic entertainer, author, and former NCAA All-American swimmer whose passion for music ignited at a young age. From fronting the wildly popular party band Tijuana Dogs to captivating audiences with his Sinatra tribute shows, Matt's ability to blend charisma, talent, and authenticity has made him one of the West Coast's most sought-after performers. Beyond the spotlight, Matt's story takes a deeply personal turn. After losing his beloved wife, Christina, in the tragic helicopter crash that claimed the lives of Kobe Bryant and others, Matt turned to music, swimming, and writing as a way to navigate his grief. His heartfelt memoir, Bittersweet Treasures, A Father's Journey Through Loss and Healing, not only chronicles his journey, but also supports the Christina Mauser Foundation, which honors Christina's legacy by providing scholarships to young female athletes. And when Matt's not performing or writing, he finds solace in the pool, reconnecting with his roots as a swimmer and embracing the therapeutic power of water. Get ready for a conversation filled with resilience, passion, and purpose. Matt Mauser is about to take us on an unforgettable journey. Matt, welcome to Champions Mojo.
Kelly, thank you for having me.
Well, Matt, in all that introduction, I didn't even say that you were a finalist on America's Got Talent too, which is another thing that I didn't put in there, but it was a lot. Your life story is truly multifaceted and amazing. And, you know, we are a swimming kind of health and wellness podcast. So why don't we start with where you got into swimming? Because I read that you also were a water polo player in high school and then an All-American swimmer in college. So how did swimming morph into music, morph into this life that you kind of find yourself in today? And, leave some space for me to ask you questions.
Well, it's an interesting past and definitely an interesting path to how I got to swimming. My uncle, my aunt married a gentleman who was an Olympic kayaker and a great high school and college swimmer. And he became the swim coach at a very popular, strong swimming background school called Newport Harbor High School here in Orange County. So in the 80s, my uncle was the head coach at Newport Harbor. I grew up in a beach community. I was a junior lifeguard, and we spent a lot of time in the water just growing up. My dad lived on a houseboat. My parents separated when I was young. My dad lived on a houseboat when I was, 7, 8 years old. So we would spend all summer, swimming around. And I was always pretty, comfortable in the water. I was a baseball player until I was about 14 years old. And then one day in a PE class, I was playing baseball and they said it's a hot day. It was a hot September day. And they put us all in the pool and they said, swim across the pool. We're going to race. And I won. And the water polo coach happened to be there and pulled me out and said, hey, you ever thought about being a water polo player? And I had grown up around swimming. So I said, yeah, I'd give it a shot. So I went out, gave it a shot, and I was pretty good. And it developed there. I played baseball. I played water polo, but swimming was something I did because you had to, I played in both the sports. And then my junior year, one of the coaches for the swim team said, you're a really good swimmer. Have you thought about, maybe quitting baseball because swimming and baseball were in the same season? And I said, no, I haven't. He said, well, if you ever want to make money being a lifeguard or you want some kind of scholarship, unless you're a great baseball player, you might have a pretty good shot. So I took his words. I went out and I would swim in the morning, go to baseball practice, and then go to swim practice at night. And I got pretty fast. I ended up breaking the school record in the 100 backstroke. This was 1987 or 88. And I got some offers to swim in college. I got my best offer. All my friends were going to a junior college, so I went there, and it just continued on from there.
Where did you swim in college?
I swam for 2 years at Golden West College, and then the head coach at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo saw me at a meet, and I believe I won an invitational, and he said, I would love it if you would consider coming to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So I got a couple offers. I was looking at UCI. Pepperdine was also on there for water polo, believe it or not. I was also a pretty strong water polo player. And something about swimming, I had just started and I was, continuing to get faster. And I just said, this is what I want to do. So I went to Cal Poly.
You obviously like swimming and did well with it, but your real passion in life seems to have been music, and your career path was music. So how did you transition into the Tijuana Dogs and really getting into music, and then eventually getting on America's Got Talent, and really music is your career? So how did that happen, and what happened to your swimming along the way with that? Some people stay swimming and some people just get out of it for 20 years and then come back.
Yeah. Well, I did both. When I was a young boy, my dad played guitar. I come from a very musical family. My aunts were concert pianists. My great-grandmother played in the Philadelphia Philharmonic. She also played at the White House for Teddy Roosevelt. So I had a long history of classically trained musicians, and I grew up around music. So it was always there. And then when I was a little kid, my dad once told me, he said, you really have a good voice. I could sing on key. I would sing all the Elvis tunes and the Johnny B. Goods and stuff like that. And I would dance around with my little brother, and my dad would just play guitar. And so we had music in the house, which I think is such an important thing for kids. Just being exposed to something, not necessarily music, but anything. If you're exposed to it, you learn it. And so as I was growing up, I really had an affection for guitar. So I would, find pieces of music at music stores, and I would learn them. And just on my own, everything that I did was pretty much on my own. When I went to college, I remember they invited me to go to a party, and I brought my guitar and I started doing some songs. And I remember everybody sitting around and just singing. I said, this is what I want to do. But nothing gave me that thrill. When I thought of careers, I was a lifeguard. I was a teacher for 20 years. I learned Spanish, and I was a Spanish teacher. But nothing gave me that thrill like competition. I loved the competition that I got in swimming and playing in sports. And the only thing that gave me that same level of adrenaline was music. So when I graduated from school and I went to look for work, I kept my lifeguard job. I got a job as a teacher. I passed all the tests and I became a Spanish teacher. And I said, I'm going to start a band. So at 25, 26 years old, I started a band. And I would invite all the people on the beach. I would pass out flyers. I would invite all my lifeguard buddies. And I would just bring a huge crowd to every club. I would say, I'll pack your place. And the band was average at best, but I would bring, 200-300 kids into the club. And, bar owners like to make money. So I realized it, and I said, this is what I want to do. So I never was a starving artist per se. I always maintained jobs. So I had my teaching job. I was lifeguarding during the summer. And then the band really started gaining traction. I got some great musicians in the band, and we just got really popular. So for about a good 10 years, I was living the dream here in Southern California. I had a very popular band. I was a lifeguard on the weekends, and I would teach during the year. Sometimes it would coincide, and I'd have to kind of figure things out, and I would be tired as a teacher, and I had to, kind of find a way to make sure that the kids didn't see me tired, but it worked out. I was kind of a little bit crazy, living a crazy lifestyle.
Obviously, one of the things that we want to hear from you about today is, how you've dealt with your grief and the loss of your wife, Christina. And where did you meet Christina in this journey? And, I read that, she was a big part of your music career. And so that must have been quite a blow, obviously, for a number of reasons, besides being, the mother of your 3 children. where did you meet her and what was her connection to being on Kobe's helicopter?
There's a lot of moving pieces to this part. So while the band got popularity, I would say we were working 3-4 nights a week. I was teaching at a private school here in Newport Beach, and I was lifeguard in the summer. And then one night at one of our shows, this beautiful, tall, athletic woman walked in, and I was just, taken by her. I went up and introduced myself. She bought a T-shirt, she bought a CD, and I didn't hear from her for a while. So a few months later, came by and I saw her again at one of our shows. I asked her out. She denied me, but she did give me a dance, and we talked a little bit. And then a few months later, I would say it's probably like nine months later from our first encounter, she came walking in again. I said, this is getting a little bit, you must like the band, or maybe there's more. And I said, I'll ask you out again. And she accepted. That was in 2004. And by 2005, we were married. I didn't know much about her until I realized that the beauty was just one part of her. She was incredibly bright, incredibly athletic. And we had a lot of the similar histories. We both went to the same high school. We grew up, within a mile from each other, and we never knew. She was a little younger than I was. So we'd never met prior, but once we met, it felt like we had known each other our whole lives. So I knew she was the right one for me. I asked her to marry me. She accepted. And she was a fantastic basketball player, a fantastic soccer and volleyball player. In fact, for our high school, she was athlete of the year 3 times for 3 different sports. She was just an incredible athlete, but mainly her love was basketball. So I was the basketball coach. It was a small school. We had to wear a lot of hats. I was not only the on-site EMT, Spanish teacher, carpool director, but I was also the basketball coach. I wasn't super knowledgeable about basketball, but I loved it. I was a huge Laker fan, and I learned a lot. So I figured out how to run defenses, how to run offenses. And one day I had a show, and I couldn't make practice. It was a game. And I asked Christina if she would cover my game so I could go work. She came in, and the athletic director said, "Who's this coaching for you?" I said, "That's my wife, Christina." He said, "Okay." The next day I came back, he said, "She's a better coach than you are. How do we get her on board?" So they gave her a job. They asked her to be the PE teacher with another wonderful couple of people that were the head of the department. And she and I started coaching basketball together. So we coached together for about 10 years. Along that path, it was a very well-to-do school, and Kobe Bryant's kids went to our school. His daughters both played for me. His second daughter, Gigi, showed a pretty significant interest in basketball, and I was her coach. My wife and I were her coach. And one day, Kobe came to me and said, "Hey, I want to start a team. Would you want to be my assistant coach?" And we had gotten to know each other through music. He was doing some production stuff, and he asked me to do some music for him. And I became his full-time songwriter for his children's podcast. So I was working on his podcast. I was writing music for Kobe, and I got really busy. It was a demanding schedule. So at one point, we were coaching basketball together, and I was doing music. And I said, "Hey, Kobe, this is a lot of time. I don't know if I can keep running these. I'm a lifeguard. I'm a teacher. I'm running my band, and I'm writing songs for you. I think something's got to give." And he said, "Well, would Christina want to be my assistant coach?" And I said, "She would be wonderful. She's a better coach than I am." So that was kind of how the whole thing, the genesis of her coaching with him. Originally, I was the coach. Just the fact that she was better got her the job. They were going to coach for 3 days a week, and 3 soon turned into 5, and 5 turned into 7. They were playing every day. We had 3 kids. My wife and I both quit our teaching jobs, me to just pursue music in 2018. We pulled our kids out of the private school. We put them in public school, and her job was coach. And we were extremely happy. It was just a wonderful time in our life.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, when you heard the news of the Kobe's helicopter going down, I read the excerpt from your book, and, it's very touching, very emotional. Besides reading your book and, learning all the details of this, what was just your general feeling when you had this happen, and where your mindset went, and maybe what might have helped prepare you, or was there anything that helped prepare you? But what would you say to people who might be, going through something similar?
As you can imagine, when you lose the most significant person in your life, you are overwhelmed. The first feeling is shock. I mean, everybody goes through that, I would imagine. I was shocked. I was terrified. As a father, my first thought was my children. How am I going to do this without their mother? And then putting my feelings in there, I almost felt selfish putting my feelings ahead of my kids, but I just missed my wife tremendously for the first part. But I did have some comfort in the fact that I was prepared. I was a teacher, so I could teach my kids. I knew how to deal with kids. I was a Spanish teacher, so, I could teach them Spanish at the very least. But I knew I was going to get through it. I didn't know how, and that was the scary thing. So my first instinct, and if you remember, this was January of 2020, and less than a month later, by March 13th, we were in COVID shutdown. So not only had I lost my wife, but then I lost the ability to be around people. And we were on complete lockdown. And the kids got sick, I got sick. There was some pretty hard realities I had to face, and that was terrifying. And that's where swimming kind of came back into my life. I would swim on occasion. When Christina died, that became every day. And that was the swimming for me was a huge therapy. I did therapy, like where you walk in and you sit down on the couch and you talk. And I did it for about 3 or 4 months, and I absolutely hated it. I couldn't stand it. It just wasn't for me. I'm not knocking it for anybody else, but for me, I just hated it. And they shut down every pool. I had a jacuzzi, a good-sized jacuzzi, so I tied a string to a tree and I put a harness around my waist, and I got in that pool every day, and I swim for like half hour, 45 minutes. They reopened the pools, and by that time, my good buddy, who was a master's coach, said, "Come out and join me." So I went out, and that's when I started swimming consistently. And I haven't stopped for the past 5 years.
When you got back to your master's group, were you supported by your teammates, or how did the whole master's kind of reignite after COVID for you?
I called Diego. Diego's a wonderful guy. And I said, "I don't want to be with people. I just need to get in the water." So he said, "I'll meet you there. You tell me what time you want to be there." I said, "I'll be there in a half hour." So I would go, and when it first started, I mean, I could go maybe 500 to 1,000 yards. It wasn't that I was out of shape, but my adrenaline was so high for a few months and just in complete defense mode. But I would get in, and slowly I kind of started getting my wind back. Slowly I started getting I lost the first 2 or 3 months. I'm about 200 pounds, 198, 195 at times, but I got down to 175. I lost a legitimate 20, 25 pounds in the first couple months.
Matt, was that from swimming, or was that from no
No,
appetite?
no appetite, no appetite. My adrenaline was just going all the time. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was just always in survival mode.
Was it like a fight or flight anxiety feeling that you were having during that time?
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to remember, we were, now we think of COVID as being, a strong cold or a flu, but back then we thought everybody was going to die. And my kids got it. And I could get my son's temperature down for about 4 days. He was at 103, 104. And I was convinced, I just lost my wife, and what else is going to happen? So it was a hard time.
Besides swimming and going to therapy, what other ways did you cope with this, loss, the grief, the COVID, taking care of your kids, your appetite? There has to be a list of things that you did to kind of resurrect yourself.
The first thing is I made a list of the things that I needed to do, and I prioritized my life. And the most important thing was I needed to be a good father. And that kind of motivation, when you look in your children's eyes and you see just the pain and the grief that they're going through, you realize quick that, you need to have some strength, and I needed to get myself together. So my kids were my major motivation. My second thing was my music. I started writing music again. I got back in the studio and we were shut down. We stopped playing. Kids were on Zoom for school, but I knew that it was going to come back. And when it came back, I wanted to be ready. So I started writing music. I started preparing for the next part of my music career. So that occupied my time. And then I said, I got to get physically fit again. So swimming. So those are my three things: the children, the music, and swimming, in that order. I kept it really simple. When tragedy hits you, you realize that life doesn't need to be that complicated. You have to really focus on what's important. And my health and my kids, and my health included my ability to play and perform music.
Were there ever mornings when you didn't want to get out of bed and you just said, I just got to keep it simple and focus on those three things?
Kelly, every morning I felt that way.
Yeah.
Every morning I felt that way. It didn't go away. There are days where I still feel that way. And I just want to make it real clear. I just adored my wife. I adored my wife. She was everything to me and to my kids. And it just doesn't go away. But what you have to do is you have to dig and you have to find. I thought that's why the book is called Bittersweet Treasures. It's like you have to go and you have to force yourself to get up and do that. Just like when you don't want to jump in the water. I swim at night, every night. It's cold and sometimes it's raining, and it's 7:30 to 8:30, and it's dark, and I have to leave my children with the nanny, and I go, but I go, not because I want to go, but because it's the right thing to do. So when you asked, was there days I wanted to stay in bed? There's still days I want to stay in bed. It doesn't just go away, but you have to force yourself to go and find that, the good in life, the treasures in life.
Yeah. You just got to keep going. Uh,
You don't give up.
yeah. You don't give up. Well, your book actually just came out 1 week ago, right? March 20th.
Mhm.
And we're recording this on the 27th. It's very exciting now, I'm sure, for you to be an author, and I'm sure you're going on a lot of podcasts and telling your story. What is your hope for this book?
That's a great question. Really, I wanted an account for my children of what it was like during these 5 years. And I wanted them to see not only how much their mother loved them and how much I loved them, but just, what my life was like prior to meeting their mother. And the things that made me who I am. I'm getting up there. I'm not young anymore. And I want my kids to someday look back and at least have a documented account of what life was like. My youngest, she was 3 when she lost her mom, and she doesn't have any backstory. This is a way, number one, for my children, for them to have a backstory. The other part is I would really like I said, with, treasures, you have to go out and you have to hunt. I want people to realize that you can go through something tragic, painful, devastating, and still live a beautiful life. Still get up and make life. Life is supposed to be happy. We are not meant to be suffering all the time. That's part of life, yes. But in the cracks in between, you have to find the ability to be happy. And really, it's the simple things that make us happy. Your kids, friends, smiles, being able to relate with people, finding satisfaction in your job and in your work. Those things are important.
What are your thoughts on that when we suffer deeply, we sometimes can have joy, in the same amount, that when we do suffer, it makes us appreciate joy a little bit more?
I think, yeah, I would agree with that 100%. My big issue when I feel joy is allowing myself to not feel guilty that I'm here and my wife isn't. So, for example, my daughter, she plays water polo. She got a scholarship to play water polo at Indiana University. She's a really good water polo player. She's at one of the strongest programs here in Southern California. And next year, she's got one more year of high school. And then the following year, she'll be playing water polo in Indiana. She's had a tremendous amount of success. She was athlete of the year. She was a junior Olympic MVP last summer up in Stanford. And she's had tremendous amount of success. And I've just felt so much happiness, but that's peppered with this sadness and this feeling of just regret that my wife can't be here. So I have to learn to be able to let it be okay that I can feel that sadness, and let it be okay that I can still feel happy. And that's okay. And it's the same thing with, and there's a part of the book which says, I wrote a letter to my wife and I say, at this point, I have to let you go and I have to learn to love again, because love, like life, is for the living. And, you have to accept that we only have a little bit of time here, and you have to take every day as a gift. And life, there's a great saying, life is for the living. And I intend to live. I made the choice that I want to live. I want to be happy. And I want all the things that are associated with love and life and being happy.
Oh, yeah. I love that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Before I ask you the last question that I always ask, the second to last question, do you like to compete? Do you have any goals for your swimming, your master's competitive swimming? Are we ever going to see you in a meet or?
My coach keeps asking me, because I can still bust out a pretty good time in a 50 or 100 back. He's asked me to come out and compete. Usually on the days that we've had meets, I usually am working. My schedule with my work schedule with the band is pretty crazy. I perform over 150 shows a year. I'm on the road a lot with a great producer named David Foster. I don't know if you know who he is, but I go on the road with him on occasion, and I'm out of town. I perform in a lot of different states. And so if there's a meet where I'm not working, I will be there. And I'm looking forward to getting back into competition. We do compete with ourselves at practice. I can still get pretty fast in the 100 free and the 100 back. But to me, it's more, I want to be on stage and be able to sing and not have, fatigue. And the swimming is really the only thing that allows me to keep my lung capacity and keep my wind. And I'm so, there's nothing that's better for you than swimming, especially if you're a singer like I am.
Yeah. And you've chosen two activities that you can do, into your 90s or 100. I mean, we've got singers that, stay out there and rock the house until they're.
It's so funny you say that. Last night I went and saw Paul Anka. Remember Paul Anka?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, of course.
I saw him last night, went backstage, and I got to meet him. My manager brought me back there. And this guy is 83 years old, and he's like a kid jumping around. He says, why do I do it? He goes, I love it. But he said he has to stay in shape. And he gave some great advice, because he knew I was a singer. And he said, just keep physically fit. It'll change your lifestyle. I said, oh, Paul, don't I know?
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I know, the late Tina Turner rocked it for so long, and Elton John is still out there producing new music. And, I'm sure there are many, many more that we can't even, think of right now. But yeah. And certainly swimming, we know we've got the elders in the sport that are still doing great. So, well, that's wonderful. Well, your book, Bittersweet Treasures, A Father's Journey Through Loss and Healing, which is published by the CG Sports Company publishing arm of the CG Sports Company. So that's out and available. And can they get that on Amazon, I would imagine, or anywhere?
Yes, they can get us under Amazon. Just look up Bittersweet Treasures.
Bittersweet Treasures. And so the very last question, before we go into a fun sprinter round, which are a few one-word answers that I'm looking for, is there anything that I have not asked you that you would like to share with us?
No, I think you've hit all the bullet points. Get the book out there. We want everybody to read it. The band is Tijuana Dogs. We're a big band here in Orange County. If we're around, check out our Instagram, Matt Mauser Instagram or Facebook. And other than that, just stay in the water.
Keep on swimming. And the proceeds from your book are going to benefit your wife's, the Christina Maurer Foundation, to provide scholarships to young female athletes.
If I could talk about that, yes. My wife, she loved helping young women. All the girls on her team, a lot of them have gone on. They're playing in college now. But the foundation, we've given away scholarships over the past 4 years for young women that want to pursue their career in athletics that might not have the means to play. So we've given away probably $100,000, over $100,000 in scholarships over the past 4 years. The Christina Mauser Foundation, and 100% of the proceeds from the book go to the foundation.
Oh, that is awesome. That's awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out and make a donation. So, Matt, are you ready for the sprinter round of just fun questions? Okay.
Let's go.
Here we go.
Take your fire.
Favorite sandwich?
Peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, I love it. I don't think anyone said that. That is so great. So what do you own that you should throw out?
Too many children's Barbie sets.
Herbie sets. Scariest animal to you?
Scariest animal. I used to swim the pier, and I was always terrified of a great white shark.
Okay. What celebrity would you like to meet?
Kevin Costner.
Hardest swimming event in the pool?
400 IM.
Favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Favorite smell?
Ginger.
Ooh, do you make your bed every morning?
I do. If I don't, the nanny makes it.
Okay. Kickboard or no kickboard?
Never kickboard, backstroke, always on my back.
If you had to listen to one song for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Don't Worry About Me by Frank Sinatra. Don't worry about me.
I love it. Aisle or window?
Window.
Describe your life in 5 words.
Not what I expected.
I'll take it. What word comes to mind when you dive in the water?
Freedom.
Freedom. I like it. Oh, I always say I'm home whenever I dive in the water. Say I'm home. Beautiful. All right. Well, Matt, thanks for being with us today. We really appreciate your story, and keep on swimming and singing, and thank you.
You got it, Kelly.
Thank you for listening to the Champions Mojo podcast. Did you enjoy the show? We'd be grateful if you would leave us a 5-star review on iTunes to help others find us. And we'd also love to hear from you. We're on all social media platforms, or you can reach us at championsmojo.com.